In this lesson, let's start with the line tool again. Press L on your keyboard to switch to the line tool. We're going to draw a rectangle, but along the way, we're going to talk about inferences in SketchUp. So somewhere in the upper left corner of your drawing window, click once and let go of your mouse button to set your first endpoint. And then move your mouse to the right. And notice if you're in the horizontal direction, it'll snap red and say on red axis. So we haven't talked about this yet, but there is a red axis on your screen and a green axis. There's actually a third axis in SketchUp called the blue axis we'll see later. These are going to help us draw in 3D. When you're drawing in the direction of an axis, like the red axis here, it'll tell us that and help us infer that direction. So this is an inference in SketchUp. Let's go ahead and draw where we have the on red axis inference over to the right corner. Click. It'll turn black. Your edge will turn black. That's okay. It was red just while you were drawing, so you knew, but now it's a black edge. Now let's find the green inference. So go down in the green direction and click a second time. You should still have this rubber band line on your cursor. Before we finish drawing the rectangle, let's talk about some other inferences you can get. Hover over the original top endpoint, and you'll get a green dot that says endpoint when you hover over it. Don't click, but hover along the edge, and you'll get an on-edge red box inference. Now keep going and try to find the midpoint of that top edge. So move along, and then at some point where you think the midpoint will be, it will jump or snap to a blue or light blue dot that says midpoint. These are all inferences as well in SketchUp. And you can infer points from the edge you're drawing from as well. Endpoints, edge. Try to find the midpoint of the edge you're drawing from. Here's another thing. When you find that midpoint, don't click, but move your mouse to the left. And notice you'll get a dotted inference that tells you you're at a point in white space that is in line with that midpoint in the red direction. If you keep moving along, there's actually a point here in white space where you're going to be underneath the green inference or the midpoint of the top edge and to the side of the red inference, so the midpoint to the right and the midpoint to the top for this point in space here. SketchUp remembers the last 5 things you've inferred, so that's how it's able to jump and pick up those inferences. This will be helpful to start to recognize these as we draw, but let's find a use for it right here. Let's draw in the red direction, but we want to draw a perfect rectangle, so we want to end at a point that's above the original endpoint here. So you can hover over the top endpoint, then move your mouse down. You'll notice the green dotted line. If you lose it, don't worry. You don't need to go back up to the top. SketchUp remembers it. You can just bring your cursor down, draw over in the red direction till a dotted line shoots down. You see a from point inference. You can click, and you'll know that edge was drawn to the right distance. Then move your mouse up in the green and hover over that original endpoint and click on it. And your final edge draws in, plus a face fills or a surface fills in these edges. So whenever you have a closed loop, so we drew from endpoint to endpoint all the way around to close this loop of edges, and they're coplanar, so they're on the same ground plane. Remember, we're in a top-down view, so we're always drawing on the ground plane right now, like in plan view. So a closed loop of coplanar edges, a surface will fill in SketchUp. Press E on your keyboard to switch to the eraser tool. Click once on the surface, and you notice that it won't erase away. So the eraser tool is only for edges. Click once on the top edge, and it will erase the edge away, and you'll lose the surface as well. So remember, again, we lost that closed loop in this case of coplanar edges, so that surface couldn't be there. Press L for the line tool, and let's trace that edge back in from endpoint to endpoint. We'll get that surface back. So we can't lose the edge and keep the surface, but the opposite we can do. so we can erase away the surface if we don't need it. But instead of using the eraser tool, right-click on the surface, and you'll get the option for erase. Go ahead and pick that. The surface goes away, but the edges remain. So there's a few different areas where we'll use that trick you'll see soon. Last thing, sometimes SketchUp, you'll draw a closed loop of coplanar edges, and for some reason SketchUp won't fill in that surface automatically. Well, here's how you get a surface back in that case. With the line tool, click on any endpoint and trace to any endpoint, and it will heal that surface or fill it back in. And just so that you know, there's only one edge there. There's not two edges cluttering your drawing now. That edge merged up with the original edge, and SketchUp knew that what you were trying to do was heal that surface or fill it back in.